Time to play the game. Time to play the game. It's all about the game and how you play it. All about control. And if you can take it, all about your debt. And if you can pay it, it's all about pay. And who's gonna make it?
Get Wicked Catering from the crew at the Wicked Sister.
We like to think of ourselves as foodies. While our favorite foods are paired with a beer tasting at the Wicked Sister, you can now have the same creative menu for your next catered business luncheon, family get-together, wedding, or holiday party. Our white truffle risotto appeals to your gluten-free and vegetarian guests. Add sautéed shrimp or freshly grilled chicken for a pop of protein. Or let us build you a custom menu to suit your needs. From plated events of 15 to buffets for 200, the Wicked Sister will cater your event with tapas, snacks, cravables, or a full sit-down dinner.
The Wicked Sister, where you'll be treated like family, whether you like it or not.
Eagle 95.1 WUPN Paradise, Sault Ste. Marie.
It's time for The Game. Eagle 95.1 proudly brings you The Game, the Twin Sault's only regional and national sports show. For the next hour, we'll get an in-depth look at sports in the Eastern Upper Peninsula and Algoma region and hear from coaches and players involved in the game. Now, let's join Scott Nason at the Wicked Sister on Ashman Street in downtown Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan for tonight's broadcast of The Game on Eagle 95.1.
Greetings and salutations and welcome to this special Tuesday night edition of The Game on this Tuesday, June 12th, 2018. Scott Nason broadcasting from the studios of Eagle 95.1 in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan on this special edition of The Game because we had a lot of sports to talk about that we didn't fit in last night, including some local scores, which we'll get to in a moment, featuring some area teams in high school baseball and softball quarterfinals, which are being played, and many games were played earlier today. And we are joined throughout the show by our co-host, Butch Davis from the Telegram News and Butch on Sports, who joins us each and every week to talk about what's going on in the Metro Detroit sports world and just sports in general. Butch, we got you connected tonight. How you doing on this Tuesday night, my friend?
I'm connected and I'm doing okay there, Scott. What's up with you there?
I am doing okay as well, but this is always one of my highlights of the day is being able to talk sports with you. And so let's start right now, Butch. I did want to go over some of the scores that we have in from the quarterfinals, which are being played across the state of Michigan in high school softball and baseball, specifically softball because we talked a lot last night about the Rudyard Bulldogs in high school softball, the first ever team from the Eastern Upper Peninsula to make a quarterfinal in softball. And they went up against the number one team in the state of Michigan in Division 4, Rogers City. And Rogers City got out to a 6-0 lead. Rudyard battled back but would fall to the Rogers City Hurons by the score of 7-5 to end their very successful season. And we'll be talking with their head coach, Kurt Kukuski, next Monday on The Game from the Wicked Sister. A very good season for the Rudyard Bulldogs. Tough end, but when you take on the number one team in the state, well, those things happen sometime. Rogers City will take on Coleman in one semifinal on Friday. Coleman beat Frankfurt 1-0 in Division 4 quarterfinal softball action. Unionville Subwawing defeated Waterford Our Lady 4-0, and Centerville 7, Ottawa Lake Whiteford 3. In Division 3, there was one UP team still alive, Negaunee. They got trounced by Sanford Meridian Early College 10-1. In Division 3, Sanford will go on to take on Millington. You have Clinton and Coloma in the other semifinals in Division 3. Division 2, there is still one UP team still alive. That team is Escanaba, and they are rolling through the competition, and they did again today as they defeated Saginaw Swan Valley by the score of 9-1. So Escanaba advances to the semifinals, which will be played on Friday. They'll take on Easton Rapids. The other side of the bracket still not complete. And in Division 1, a Northern Michigan team, Alpena, they fell in their semifinal earlier today, and so their season is over as well. Butch, a lot of baseball games going on as well today. Anything that you've seen or any teams that you're following that are still alive as far as baseball or even softball?
right now the semifinals are still in effect there in the Division One, where we see right now Brother Rice and also Brownstown going to get it on sooner, hopefully, than later. There's probably still in progress there. The scores are not in there. And in Division Two, Divine Child, okay, in softball for the girls there are still active in there. No score in that particular one going on right now there, but probably scores will be rolling in sooner than later there, hopefully before the broadcast is over. If not, then we'll check that along to you next week.
That's right, and we did have one score in from baseball. One UP team still alive, Gladstone, as they knocked out Traverse City St. Francis in Division III, the number one team in the state. They won today as well, so they'll advance to the semifinals. And so some UP teams still alive, some teams that Butch still covers are still alive, and we'll get those either at the end of this show, definitely next week when we'll have all our state champions. Well, Butch, we talked about it a little bit last night. It was breaking last night, but we do know the next head coach for the Detroit Pistons. His name is Dwayne Casey. No stranger to those that follow professional basketball. He was named Coach of the Year for the Toronto Raptors before unceremoniously being fired. In my opinion, the unceremoniously. He's going to be the next Pistons head coach. Butch, just continue or talk about what you know as far as this hiring, when they're going to have a press conference, and just your thoughts in general.
Okay, well, let me mention this also here. Riverview Gabriel Richard in baseball Division III. They're still in it there. They're in the semifinal right now. Matter of fact, they don't have a component, so they'll definitely be in the finals there. So congratulations to them. Dwayne Casey at the bat here for the Detroit Pistons here. Led the Toronto Raptors to 59 wins and a great season and whatnot by the coaches. The coaches voted him Coach of the Year. And all heck broke loose when they played Cleveland, who was undermanned, undernourished, and still got whipped, okay? Got whipped to a pulp, and that was the end of Mr. Casey there with Toronto, who's done it for about 3 years or more there. He's been with Toronto 7 years there, has a pretty doggone good over 500 record. His record is 617, okay, as far as the percentage of winning there in Toronto, which is a great doggone thing to behold. He's been a whole heck of a lot of places. He is one who has a championship ring on his finger there with the Dallas Mavericks, as he was in charge of the defense there. Matter of fact, everywhere he's went, he's been in charge with the defense there. He started off with the Seattle Supersonics there. So, you know, when he was there at a particular time, they were doing well in the 90s and whatnot there. He is a very astute person. He also coached the Japanese basketball league and worked under the Japanese national team. First time they had been in any type of world consumption for 30 years. And this he's known for his defense. He is known to have defense work for your offense. And if anything the Pistons need very, very bad is to learn how to play defense. They was lower than a P when it came down to playing defense against a whole heck of a lot of people. You can't just outscore people, or you can't just outwit them every now and then. That'll work to your favor. But being consistent, the Pistons was. And right now, this guy's going to try to work the Pistons in being consistent. Another thing that he's very hard up on in conversations that I heard from ESPN is the health of the Pistons there. The Pistons has not been a healthy team when they come into camp. And he wants to stop that. You know, he wants to put an end to that. They have some premium players who can do some good things on the court offensively and defensively, but if you're not healthy, you can't give anything to the team. The Jackson incident, the Blake Griffin off and on injuries and whatnot, this has come from not keeping your body in shape. You can look at LeBron James all you want, but one thing this guy is a master at is for sure he knows how to keep his body in shape off season as well as on the season to go through the ground and the grind that he's went through. Although he was a big loser with a sweep, he showed himself very proud, and that comes from being aware of your body and taking good care of it. The Pistons have to do a better job of insisting that, and that's the management staff and the administration staff has to employ that on the players, or get rid of them, or get someone who will do the job that they need to be done. If the Pistons can do that, along with some of the talent they have, and they are very talented at this point, they can. They definitely should be in the playoff, with no doubt about it. There, I think that's the more sadder scenario of this whole situation is that with the talent the Pistons do have, they were not in the playoffs at all, and it's saddening. And also, they lost a lot of fans.
And this is really the start of what's going to be a busy summer for the Detroit Pistons, Butch. They still have to hire some executives to run the front office. They did hire Ed Stefanski as senior advisor to owner Tom Gores. You have the draft coming up where the Pistons do not have a first-round selection, and free agency, or maybe lack thereof, with the Detroit Pistons because of, well, salary cap issues. You have the luxury tax issue where they're not going to be able to make a whole lot of moves, at least getting players in. So really this is the start of the process, but it's going to be a busy summer for the Pistons.
Well, it's a good thing and a bad thing. Number one, stability has to be in the play, and that's one thing that Casey's going to strive. It's stability there. You got the same players that you dealt with last year. Can you do better? Yes, you can. Has it been enforced? No, it has not. So we got to see if this guy has any influence on the players that we do have now, if they're planning on staying. I'm quite sure some moves will be made in eligibility of getting maybe some stronger, younger players who want to be here via D-League or other leagues in general to make this team a lot stronger off the bench there. We do have some players off the bench who does very well. I think one of the big mistakes, and I mentioned them, Ellison was not hardly played last year. I think this young man can be a find if you give him time on the court. Luke Kennard, that was a wasted draft pick, and you're not going to play the guy and do the things that he is very, very much so capable of doing. Yes, he is poor on defense. That was already established when they drafted the guy. But again, if you don't have the influence to get this guy to play a two-way game, things are not going to happen for him. So why keep him if he's not going to convert himself to a better player than what he is? And a good coach will get that out of you if you want to stay in the NBA. You know, you cannot give fans the effort and expecting them to come out and sell out a brand new venue that is a beautiful place to watch a game, a very good seats to deal with that, a whole heck of a lot of excitement if you take it on in. But again, there's nothing exciting about the home team getting beat down to a pulp in the third quarter of the game, not even giving themselves a chance to win.
Butch Davis joining us on The Game, who gives us a weekly first-hand account on what's going on in the world of sports in the Detroit area. And, Butch, let's move on to the NFL. The true NFL offseason really has started as OTAs are over for the Detroit Lions and other football teams, as the Lions will be waiting for training camp, which will start in late July. Butch, I know you had a chance to get down there and witness some of the OTAs which happened with the Detroit Lions. Anything you want to bring up to our listeners tonight?
It sucks. It really sucks because you're really watching players get familiar with the playbook.
Right.
And you're not going to get a whole heck of a lot of enthusiasm, and you're going to see a whole heck of a lot of teaching, which I did see, or I did witness at one time or another throughout the little venture, what they allow you to see, okay? It's, all the players are talking positive as normal because this is a new coaching staff, and they don't have to take the things that the last coaching staff gave. They're going to find out if you really want to be here. And they have no problem in finding a way to get you out of here so they can find some players who do want to be here and obey the rules and regulations of the new coach that's been put in charge there. He's used to winning ways. He knows that certain things have to happen. Again, the health of a team means a whole heck of a lot, and I can't stress that so much. These are two coaches right now that's put that at their top priority, the health of the player in general, how you take care of your body off the gridiron and come on the gridiron and produce. As fast as they can keep their body in shape, you can learn great things, you can do more things, you can keep your body in tone through a grinding season that is not easy for a National Football League player there. The Lions is right now they're learning the schemes that right now hopefully will make them very successful, and we see them in the playoffs not only just to show up but to win a game.
Everybody's dying here across the state of Michigan for the Lions to not only get to the playoffs, but win a game in the playoffs. It's been a very long time. Butch Davis joining us on the game. You can hear his show, Butch on Sports, on his podcast page, Simply Butch2. That's too.podomatic.com, or you can find it on the podcast page of this show, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. Butch, let's transfer to the Detroit Tigers in action tonight. No score, top of the first inning as we record this on a Tuesday night. Coming off a very busy and tough week, going 3-5, splitting a doubleheader against the Yankees in a makeup pair of games, and then losing 2 out of 3 at Boston, losing 2 out of 3 at home against Cleveland. They have 3 at home against Minnesota before going the White Sox 4-3. Thoughts on the Detroit Tigers? They're still in second place. They're fading a little bit as far as where Cleveland is. Thoughts on the Tigers, Butch?
Well, Minnesota's not no bum, okay? As far as the Detroit Tigers is concerned right now, they can lose a whole heck of a lot of ground with this 3-game series going into play there when it comes down to Minnesota, and Minnesota dividing itself away from Detroit and getting close to Cleveland there. Right now, the division is open to keep it tight, you know, for a good considerable period of time with the play of Cleveland there. Has not been always spot on, but now their main players are now getting warmed up. Kluber's getting warmed up. Nacion, he's been injured, but again, when he gets warmed up, that's going to be a problem. These teams right now, again, I say they're getting, I'm using that expression again, getting warmed up. Minnesota has not looked bad at all here. Their pitching staff is a little bit better than Detroit Tigers, so they can withstand a beating and still stay close in the game. So the Tigers are going to have to come out there and do some timely things. And again, maybe play some small ball in order to, get some runs across the plate here. You can't always bop and sock the doggone ball in the holes there. You got to somewhat put someone off their game. And again, the Tigers sometimes play a little bit more predictable than it stands in order to make themselves successful.
Butch Davis joining us on the game. Butch will be back with us on Monday night at the Wicked Sister when we have our next show. You can hear Dave McKeag on Wednesday night this week for his show from Sports Center Bar and Grill in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario at thegamesportshow.com or the podcast page, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. Butch, let's move on to the Detroit Red Wings. Having some organizational meetings this week at Little Caesars Arena, getting ready for a busy few weeks, as the NHL draft will be next week, June 22nd and 23rd in Dallas, and then the development camp for the team's prospects and draft picks will be June 26th through the 30th, and then unrestricted free agency begins on July 1st. So not a whole lot with the Wings right now, but coming here in the next few weeks, Butch, going to be very busy for the boys from Motown.
Yeah, we're going to find out who's going to stay and who's going to go. I think right now is a turning point for the Detroit Red Wings in getting players in there who's going to be staying, and the players who are not being productive and whatnot, they're finding their wraps and whatnot in their bag and packing up and moving on there. It's hard to say how this is going to work. They're 6 with the draft pick. The free agency, don't have a lot of wiggle room in there, but they did some things when they got rid of players during the expansion and also throughout the season there when injuries and whatnot occurred and they didn't have to pick up those salaries there. So they have a little bit of wiggle room. I don't think they're going to go hog wild in the free agency bag unless they go and find someone very young. I think that's going to be the key. They're not going to find a veteran who's going to walk on in and get some excitement there. It's a Justin Bufflin or something, or Jones, I can see that happening, okay? But don't expect it for the Detroit Red Wings there. They're going to use those draft picks. They're going to look at Grand Rapids very, very hard and those players there who are maybe ready to come up this year. They're going to also look at the stock they have in the Ontario League and move them up to Grand Rapids to see how quick they can develop there. But again, if they go after someone, it's going to be someone who's young. I cannot see them getting a veteran of maybe 35 years old or something, bringing them in just for a sore spot, only to trade them at the end of the season if Detroit Red Wings are not successful there.
Butch, you mentioned the Ontario Hockey League. I did want to bring up one other local sporting note that happened today. The Sioux Greyhounds and the Ontario Hockey League have released their 2018-2019 schedule. We touched on this a little bit last night. The home opener for the Greyhounds will be on Friday, September 21st against Sarnia. They will open up the season on the road, taking on Saginaw on Wednesday, September 19th. Other games of note: the defending Ontario Hockey League champion Hamilton will be in Sault Ste. Marie on October 20th, and the regular season finale will be on March 17th against Saginaw. If you want the entire schedule, go to the OntarioHockeyLeague.com website or SiouxGreyhounds.com. But before we have our mini roundtable tonight, any other news from the Metro Detroit area that you wanted to cover before we get to the roundtable?
Let's see. I'll go pick and dig in my repertoire of BS here.
We love your BS, Butch.
Yeah, right.
It's a Bachelor of Science, right?
I like it too. The Grand Prix, we haven't talked about that here. Last weekend, the Grand Prix was here, and everybody was happy, joy. Unfortunately, and fortunately, they had another record there. 5,000 more people walked in the joint there for a grand total of 105,000 people going into Belle Isle there. And, those were some crazy days. I think the third day was more challenging than anything else because of the weather per se, which it never did go pour down heavy as it was predicted. That kept the crowd down to like a 35,000. The biggest day was on Saturday, where they had a total of 45,000 people on the island there to watch racing. And again, the weather was fitting for that, per se, than Sunday, where basically threatening rain was coming in. Maybe people changed their minds and not go out there, but it would have been humongous there. One thing I'm going to mention, and I'm going to talk to the staff of the Grand Prix in further days, is how disabled people get around the island there. That was an opening shocker in my eye there. I'm finding a lot of people who, have some disabilities or a hard time walking. You got to walk over a bridge to keep things moving there. And the only time that bridge is not open where you can cross the track on all is when the track is not hot. When I say it's not hot, that means no race cars are driving. And the many events they have out there, that's very few that can person can maybe get a little bit more easier access there. I'm going to ask a question for that there, because that's something that many people feel that needs to be addressed there. Is it user-friendly for people with disablement there? But I just had to mention that because, again, with all the good things that happen with the Grand Prix, there's a lot of good things that happen with the Grand Prix. They can always improve on other items and echelons for our fans to enjoy something that the arrangers put a whole heck of a lot of money in. And that's one thing that should be addressed there.
Absolutely, indeed. Scott Nason, Butch Davis on the special Tuesday night edition of The Game. And we would like to thank all our sponsors for all our shows, including this one, Sports Center Bar and Grill and Boston Pizza. Our sponsors include the Wicked Sister and Pingator Cleaners in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, Sports Center Bar and Grill, Boston Pizza in Sioux, Ontario, along with the Sioux Peary Pro Shop, The Salon, Discover the Canvas, Northern Critters in Need, Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Sioux, Ontario, and of course WUPN Eagle 95.1, Paradise, Sault Ste. Marie. We are going to continue this special Tuesday night edition and transition into the roundtable, a mini roundtable tonight. We did cover a few topics last night, but Butch, we're going to give you honors for the first topic. What does Butch Davis have on his mind, and what does he want to talk about as far as the world of sports tonight on this Tuesday?
Oh, boy.
You like that intro?
Put me in a little spot here, have you, buddy, here.
I know you can handle it.
Yeah, I know. Well, let's pick on something we haven't talked about yet, the NBA.
Yes.
And also, we can combine that with the National Hockey League as well. Did you enjoy the playoffs from beginning to end? And be honest, okay? There was wows and flutters in it, and sometimes you allow the media to control how you watch a game, but that's unfortunate. But what did you think of it there?
Funny, Butch, that was going to be my exact question to you, so that's fantastic. I will start. We talked about it last night. I'll cover it again tonight. I really like the Stanley Cup playoffs, really the entire way through. My favorite round's always the first round because you have so many matchups, you have so many games, and that's traditionally always been my favorite. It's just there's so many games going on. And you have such good stories. I mean, you look at the Stanley Cup champion Washington Capitals. They lose those first two games to Columbus. Columbus ends up falling in that series. Washington got the proverbial monkey, gorilla, and every other thing you can imagine off their back in the next round where they beat Pittsburgh. So I really enjoyed that series. Out west, I mean, how can you not like the Vegas story? I was pulling for Winnipeg, and that Winnipeg-Nashville series was one of the best of the playoffs, and Winnipeg got whooped by Vegas in that Western Final, and I thought the Stanley Cup Finals was good. I mean, did it have the drama that we maybe wanted or wished for? It did not, but it had a good story, and I talked about it last night. It was strange, me almost pulling for the Washington Capitals. It's a team I've always been indifferent towards. I mean, Ovechkin's always been one where I don't like him. I didn't dislike him. He was kind of somewhere in the middle. But as that series went on, I found myself saying that Washington almost had to win that series. It seemed like it had to happen for that franchise, for Ovechkin, for TJ Oshie, who I just thought had the best emotional speech and such with his dad out there hugging him, who has Alzheimer's, and just the passion that these players have for the Stanley Cup. And we talked about that last night, about passion for a trophy. I put the Stanley Cup and the World Cup, which will be my next topic, by the way, Butch, in the same category as far as the players' attachment to that cup and just winning it. And the other titles are big, and the NBA is as well, but it just doesn't have that emotional attachment, in my opinion, that those two sports do. So I really like the NHL playoffs pretty much throughout. NBA playoffs, I like the middle. I didn't like the beginning because there weren't a whole lot of great series in the beginning, although it was more competitive than we've seen in past years. I mean, you look at Indiana gave Cleveland all they could handle, and there were some other series that went a little further than I thought. I really thought the conference finals for the NBA was the highlight for me, both going to Game 7, a Boston team that really overachieved with having so many of their star players get injured and pushing Cleveland to the limit, and then Golden State, Houston. I mean, what a series that was. That one goes 7. And then you had Game 1 of the NBA Finals. You thought, okay, maybe this is going to be a pretty exciting series, and certainly Game 1 was very exciting, controversial, and everything else. And then the series flatlined as far as I'm concerned. Golden State was way too good. Kevin Durant is way too good and way too consistent. So to answer your question, Butch, I really enjoyed the Stanley Cup playoffs. I enjoyed parts of the NBA playoffs, but boy, that final series, that was a dud to me. Butch, your thoughts?
Well, let's stay fresh with the final series of the NBA first and foremost. I agree. The middle series were the best series to watch there. It intrigued me very much, and it kept me on my edge of my seat there. With some doggone good teams in there. You mentioned Boston a whole heck of a lot there. What if, boy, if Kyrie Irving was well and Haywood was together, what kind of massacre could have really happened here, and the way around of Cleveland, and, not taking away anything from LeBron James. Again, this guy who kept his body to a no-not one, and he should be praised for that, if anything else, to take the grind that he's taken, and only to blame his little thumb or his fist for ramming it into a whiteboard there. A reason why he was not at his best. I thought that kind of down-drained the whole particular there. It would have been better if he said, well, you know what, I played with it anyway. I knew what I was going for, and, I had to make no excuses. I did my very best. And that would have been it. To show that he was a knucklehead or whatever it may be, or he was a bad loser, that's just part of the game. We have all hit something. and wish we didn't do it. But again, the human facet of this particular story really, made it wicked. Didn't take anything from the Golden State Warriors. That they play a masterful game for a sweep there. And I can laugh at everybody because I was rooting for Golden State all along. And I can laugh all the way to the bank here, because, it was just pickled for me just to say, how they did it. And the way they did it was just great. Getting to hockey there, the first round was the best to me there. The first round was definitely the best. The second round wasn't so bad either there. The National Hockey League did a damn good job on making things very suitable for everybody. NBC showed all the pageantry of a hockey game, okay? Yes. And I thought that was just supremely, just whipped everybody. With the Super Bowl, it whipped them all here. I mean, that was something in Las Vegas, was something that really was something. I mean, you would go to maybe the Renaissance where the horses were, man, for something like that there, man. Man, that's true. That was some artistry and and I hope more teams kind of adopt some type of skit of meaning toward bringing the team together. And we can't also not forget that Las Vegas, regardless of the players they got and what it may be, came in a bad time in October.
Yep.
And they really did. That team not only showed itself in the community, as I was told through many relatives I do have, they made themselves accessible. They made no excuses. They brought everyone together in that particular town for their first professional sports team that made headways there. Only to fall short of that 500-1 bet there that someone did not get here. So I guess people are sweating bullets. People really would have been broke and leaving town by sundown. But again, it was great. I enjoyed every minute of it.
One thing I just wanted to add, Butch, and we've talked about this throughout the season a couple times, NBC's coverage of hockey in general, especially the playoffs, you got to give them a lot of credit. I mean, from the beginning to the end, are they on par with the CBC? No, nobody ever will as far as I'm concerned with hockey. But you got to give NBC a lot of credit, putting all the games on different channels, showing the pregame ceremonies and having great announcers. You had one of the female announcers there doing color, I believe for the Winnipeg, maybe it was Minnesota series. She did a fantastic job. Kudos to NBC. What do you think?
They did one heck of a. I complain about NBC because they're not the best network in the world when it comes down to doing things live. But
I agree. With
particular hockey match there, where they use all their stations at will to show every single game because they control it from lock to stock to bottom. The only time a local team gets to do something, in this case Fox Sports Detroit, is only in the first round only. After that, it's exclusively NBC all the way. And they showed every game, every hit, every face-off. If they was not on time, they told you to go to this particular station that if you had just basic cable, you would be able to reach the matches and whatnot. And that's extraordinarily very good. They showed everything that they had to do. They did a magnificent job. Hopefully, maybe ABC will get something together on that particular ground because the times they do it and the way they do it there, it's dry, as I say there. If it wasn't for the competition, it didn't hold a camp to NBC's coverage this year of the Stanley Cup. They did one heck of a job. They missed one game during the finals, but they used it the second game as a buffer, okay, to not the show, but that was okay. They got away with it. The series went the way it went, and it showed everything from top to bottom. So let's give kudos to NBC on a great job they did on the National Hockey League there.
Scott Nason and Butch Davis on this Tuesday night edition of the game. Butch, I brought this subject up to the round table last night. We had Dave McKeag and Katie Woolen. I know you're excited to have Katie on. We'll get you back on next week and fix those technical bugs. But I wanted to get them excited about the World Cup, which starts Thursday in Russia. Now, one of the reasons that maybe Katie or Dave, especially being of Italian descent, were not excited because Italy and the United States are not in this year's World Cup. More of a shock that Italy's not in the World Cup. But I want to get your thoughts on the World Cup. I have a lot to say. I said a lot last night. I'll say a lot tonight. This is a month-long tournament. It couldn't be in a better time slot as far as time of the year because there's not a whole lot else going on. I mean, there's always lots going on, but not a whole lot, as far as games besides, a few sports here and there. Are you excited about the World Cup is my question, Butch? And secondly, who are you pulling for?
Well, I want to take Argentina.
Yep.
But I like them. But again, everything has to play itself out because you got Spain there. That is always very good. You have some other teams that are basically down south of Brazil is always a show up. Mexico, it's just something about that team that you want to stay close to because they've been at times look invincible. And there's other times when they get into big battles, they disappear. And I don't think this year will be one of them cases where Mexico disappear. I think they got one of the better football teams out there right now playing some doggone good football, and there's someone to be watching there, big time. If Fox do the same thing as NBC does when it comes down to showing football in its time frame, which, by the way, if you're in Russia, that means in the morning time, that's when you're going to get some of these games played. When you're walking out of the house to go to work or something, or maybe afternoon shift where basically it'll be the end of the game and you'll have to depart to go to work or whatever it may be. It's not going to be too cool. So have your little DVDs ready and all this other good stuff to record it because, again, it's going to be interesting how they put this package together. I'm talking about the Fox Network. No, Fox One and Fox Sports are going to bring all the games in this entirety, and I'm very anxious to see how they do that.
Yeah, looking at the matches and where there will be, but you did mention Fox and Fox Sports 1. They'll also be on Telemundo if you want to get the Spanish language, which I enjoy as much, if not more, than the English language one, and ESPN Deportes. The match air times will be at 6 a.m., 8 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 2 p.m., and 3 p.m., so there won't be any night matches. They'll all go on during the day. The first match will be this Thursday, June 14th, as Russia, the host, will take on Saudi Arabia. The hosts of the World Cup have advanced to the next round all but once, and that was back in 2010 when South Africa hosted it. And as I told Paul Van Wagner on ESPN Blacksburg's The Drive when I was talking the World Cup, and I said last night, if you're going to watch the World Cup and maybe just get a smidge of it, I suggest this weekend 3 matches that you can watch that are good matches. Don't watch Tunisia taking on Japan or something. No offense to those two countries, but there's 3 matches this weekend that you can watch that I think are excellent, and we'll give you an idea of if you maybe want to keep watching the World Cup. On Friday, 2 p.m., one of the biggest matches, probably the biggest matchup in the first round, Portugal and Spain, who are in the same group. And they are 2 powerhouses in Europe. Spain won the World Cup back in 2012. Portugal won the last Euro championship with Cristiano Ronaldo. That is going to be a huge game. But you mentioned Argentina. They'll play on Saturday against Iceland, the smallest team in the entire World Cup. The country only has 400,000. They are a fun team to watch, a bit of an underdog story. They knocked out England of the European Championships 2 years ago. I'm pulling for Iceland and England. Those are the 2 teams I'm rooting for. And then on Sunday, you mentioned Mexico. Mexico's in a tough group. They'll take on the German Machine at 11 a.m. on Sunday. So those are 3 matches that if you're interested in watching the World Cup, maybe you haven't watched it before, give it a shot. Watch a match or watch part of a match. There's tons of matches going on. The way they set up, there's 8 groups of 4. And you have 2 teams that advance from each group. So Group A, you have Russia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay. Group B, Iran, Morocco, Portugal, and Spain. Group C, Australia, the Socceroos, along with Denmark, France, who's going to be very tough in this tournament, and Peru. Group D, Argentina, a team that hasn't won it since 1986. You have Lionel Messi, one of the greatest of all times, but he has not won a World Cup. In that group, we mentioned Iceland, Croatia, and Nigeria. In Group E, some people say the favorites, Brazil, who got absolutely humiliated in the last World Cup, which they hosted 4 years ago, where they lost 7-1 to Germany in the semifinals, and they have a lot to prove, including Mr. Neymar, who had a bit of an injury this season. Hopefully he'll be back at full strength if you're Brazil. Serbia, Switzerland, and Costa Rica, the other countries in Group E. And Group F, Germany, Mexico, which we mentioned, South Korea, and Sweden. Group G, the one I'm watching, England, who has not won the World Cup since 1966. They're in a pretty good group. They have Belgium, along with Panama and Tunisia. Panama was the team that knocked out the U.S. To make it to the World Cup. There are 750 to 1 odds there, so if you're laying money on the World Cup, you might want to go maybe put a couple bucks on Panama. Group H, Colombia, Japan, Poland, Senegal. And then those are your 8 groups. And, well, the favorites right now, Germany, Brazil, Argentina, Spain, France. That's my opinion. Those are the ones I would watch out for. Dark horses in the tournament, hey, why not England? It's been a while. They have some good players. They've never had a lot of luck once they get to this stage. And one of the other things I wanted to mention, Butch, South America has not had a whole lot of luck as far as when European countries host the World Cup. As a matter of fact, only once has a South American team won the World Cup on European soil, and only once has a European team won a cup on South American soil. The South American team that won on European soil was Brazil back in 1958 in Sweden, and the team that won in South America was Germany in the last World Cup in 2014. So I will be watching, Butch. As you can tell, I'm a little excited about this upcoming month as far as the World Cup.
Give him a history lesson, Dr. Nason here.
Thank you.
Oh, boy. And you know what? All that enthusiasm you poured on in there, I bet you believe that the fans are going to be watching the World Cup on Fox Sports there, and the other networks that you did mention, ESPN, Deportes, and Telemundo, yes.
Butch, one other thing I wanted to mention here before we get to your thumbs up and thumbs down for the week. I am losing my wrestling watching time. I am getting very disinterested with the WWE over this past month. Is it just me? Am I maybe going through another midlife crisis? I just wanted your comment. We haven't talked about the WWE for a little bit of a time. I'm losing interest, Butch. Help me out.
Well, I think losing interest and some changes that I think the WWE has not announced is going to make a lot. You're hearing these rumors that certain people are going to be coming back into play, and you're hearing rumors that certain individuals are going to be leaving. Brock Lesnar is one of them. Now, he has not been all that, big with the WWE fans because, again, he has not put up those titles when basically you think he should on either television or and the pay-per-views and whatnot. He's skipped a lot of matches there, skipped a lot of opportunities, and you just don't get that in just any kind of situation there with the WWE always complaining that they're fighting champions and whatnot. It's just some schemes that right now you know it's going to be some good people turning into heels, and I think it's going to be an adaptation. I think they're trying to get this thing cleaned up before the SummerSlam. I think that is their goal. The way they're doing this Money in the Bank situation has been very exciting for me. I'm doubtful very seriously I'm going to pay for this particular era. It's kind of just, not watching at all because, again, you lose a lot in putting in the effort to deal with it there. But right now, hopefully SmackDown has a little bit more excitement, which I doubt very seriously with the matches they will have out there in order to kind of caress the whole situation. There's a lot of stars that's not getting no work.
Right.
And the people that they should be beating up and having a good time with and being entertained with, we're not seeing those kind of matches there. And we're seeing redundant situations that, right now I don't think fans really dig it. I think, you can edge a good matchup there where when you do have these pay-per-views, you'll take some interest in it. But so far so good to watch Daniel Bryan get his brains beat out and a whole lot of other things. And not saying that, he's the perfect guy in town, but the way they're milking this here is something has to change sooner than later there. And, the Nakasaka thing with my man there, that has worn its course.
Really has.
Out there, whatever they're going to do with that particular situation to make that work out, hopefully they do it so the show will be better, because to watch the same old redundant stuff is just totally ridiculous with me here right now.
Butch, let's get to our thumbs up and thumbs down. I did mine last night. I'm just going to add one thumbs up tonight to you and, well, I guess to myself. It's Sunday. It's Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, Butch.
Yes. And nobody else is celebrating. I'm celebrating here.
That's right. That's right. What are your thumbs up and thumbs down this week, sir?
I just don't know. I wish I knew. But, hey, let's get some thumbs up to the National Hockey League there for the show that they put on throughout the playoff season there. They did an incredible job. You got to take notice of that. And hopefully NBC gets better than worse. They'll probably get worse.
Gave him too much love tonight, Butch.
Not on that one. I'll tell you what here. My thumbs down. I think that would have to be seriously just the climate right now of people in general right now.
You got that right.
And just the climate has been so waggedy. I know in Detroit they're doing smash and grabs and this and that, and they're kind of dull. Sports is something that brings everybody together there. And for a couple nights last week, we had that particular situation with those championships going on. But without those now, you're back to getting back to a routine of getting ready for summer and a whole heck of a lot of stuff. I just wish and pray that everybody have a great summer here. And the thumbs down don't go and dealing with all these tragedies here. That's just not good for me, and I don't think it's good for all our fans out there. Well, let's have a happy-go-lucky zone. Let's go out our way to treat everybody kind and generous there.
Couldn't agree more, Butch. Well said. You can find this show along with our Monday night show, Butch on Sports, the Game Sports Show from Sports Center Bar and Grill, and the Game Sports Show from Boston Pizza, along with my segments with Paul Van Wagner on ESPN Blacksburg's The Drive on the brand new website, thegamesportshow.com, or the podcast page, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. You can also find all the shows on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search for the Scott Nason channel. Well, Butch, what do you have in store this week before we talk to you on Monday night from the Wicked Sister? Tigers,
looking at some World Cup. Kind of monitoring the Pistons, because next week we didn't mention that the party of introducing the coach to the general public will probably be on Monday or Tuesday. And those particular days won't be on Father's Day, that's for sure. But Monday or Tuesday he'll be introduced to the general public at large there. That'll be one of the iota things here. Hopefully everything's done in unison so I can be on the show and be done on time here.
Absolutely. You can find Butch once again at his podcast page for Butch on Sports at Simply Butch2. That's TOO.podomatic.com. Also hit him up on Facebook at Butch on Sports, and you can find him on the podcast page here. Once again, thegamesportshow.podbean.com. Butch, love doing a show with you any time of the week. Thanks for joining us on this special Tuesday night edition, and we will talk to you Monday night from the Wicked Sister. Have a great rest of the week, my friend.
Yep, everything working great there, man. So we don't want no more interruptions.
We certainly don't. Thanks again, Butch.
All right, thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for this Tuesday night edition of the game. Don't forget, Dave McKeag will have a special Wednesday night edition of the Game Sports Show from Sports Center Bar and Grill. We'll have that on the podcast page Thursday morning. And we'll be back here Monday for another edition of the game on Eagle 95.1.